All right, so get this. Okay. Picture a city skyline, but instead of concrete and steel, it's lush green trees reaching for the sky. Thousands of them, right in the middle of a bustling city.
Hmm.
Now, we're not talking about like Avatar or something. This is happening in Nanjing, China.
Right.
And today we're going to deep dive into how this crazy ambitious project is tackling pollution and reimagining city living.
It's a really interesting case. Yeah, it's not just about making cities prettier, though. I mean, that is a nice side effect.
Yeah.
But the Nanjing Vertical Forest is going all in on solving urban problems.
Yeah, I was reading that Nanjing has been dealing with some pretty bad air pollution.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, yes. A lot of it is because of all the industry, but
Hmm.
Nanjing is in a valley, which doesn't help. It traps all the smog.
Oh, wow.
Back in December 2017, it got so bad that the city was just covered in this thick smog, like really hazardous.
Hmm.
And the PM 2.5 levels, those tiny particles that get into your lungs,
Yeah.
way higher than what's safe.
That's kind of scary. I can't imagine trying to live like that every day.
Yeah.
So, how does this vertical forest help?
Well, they're fighting pollution with, well, nature's best weapon,
Mm.
trees.
Right.
And not just a few trees here and there. Like, it's a whole forest growing vertically on skyscrapers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I read about this architect, Stefano Boeri. He's like a big name in sustainable architecture, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He really pushes the boundaries of what's possible with nature in buildings.
Hmm.
His inspiration was actually his vertical forest in Milan.
Oh,
It was
okay.
super successful. So he took those ideas and scaled them up for Nanjing's Puka district, which is a major development zone there.
Okay, so just how big is this thing? This isn't like a couple of potted plants, right?
No, not at all. There are two towers. One is 200 meters tall.
Wow.
The other is 108 meters tall. And they're covered with over 1,100 trees, 2,500 shrubs, tons of plants, all for 23 different species, all native too.
That's incredible. But I mean, really, how much can all that greenery actually do for the air quality? It seems more symbolic than anything.
It's definitely not just symbolic. The Nanjing Vertical Forest it's projected to absorb 25 tons of CO2 per year.
Wow.
I mean, that's like taking 5 cars off the road for a whole year.
Wow.
And on top of that, it pumps out 60 kilograms of oxygen every day.
It's a giant air purifier.
Basically, yeah.
That's amazing. I'm starting to see why everyone's talking about this. It's not just about planting trees, it's a whole new approach.
Yeah.
But how do you even start building something like this? I mean, planting trees on skyscrapers can't be easy.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
You're right. It's a very complex project, pushing the limits of engineering and architecture. I mean, let's start with, the balconies for the trees, as you said.
Wait, they have balconies just for trees?
Yeah. They designed these cantilever terraces that come out from the buildings specifically to hold all that weight.
Wow.
It's like giant shelves for nature.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And those shelves have to be designed really carefully so they distribute the weight evenly and handle the wind.
Yeah, wind has got to be a big deal when you've got trees so high up.
Yeah. They actually made a miniature version of the building.
Really?
Yeah, complete with tiny trees, and they put it in a wind tunnel
Wow.
to figure out how the wind would flow around it and affect the plants.
That's amazing.
It is, yeah.
It sounds like they had to think of everything. What about the plants? How did they choose which ones to use?
Ah, yeah. Picking the plants was one of the biggest challenges. They couldn't just pick anything.
Right.
They needed species that could survive Nanjing's pollution,
Yeah.
but also handle different amounts of sunlight,
Yeah.
on different sides of the building,
Right.
and have enough space for their roots.
Yeah.
So they had to work with botanists, do a ton of research to find the right mix.
Wow.
And even then, they had to figure out how to get these full-grown trees up there.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture that. I bet it was something else to see these trees being lifted hundreds of feet up.
Oh, it was. And that's only the beginning. I mean, then there's the soil.
Yeah, right. You can't just use any old dirt.
Exactly. They had to make a special blend. It had to be light, so it wouldn't weigh down the building.
Right.
But also, it had to be full of nutrients to keep all those trees healthy.
Makes sense.
And then there's the irrigation system.
Oh, right. Keeping all those trees watered must be tricky.
Yeah, it's not like you can just walk around with a watering can.
So, what did they do?
They put in this high-tech system. It delivers water right to the roots using pipes and sensors. They even collect rainwater and use that.
Wow.
Yeah,
This is where things get really interesting.
it is. There's so much innovation packed into this project.
I bet there were some unexpected challenges too, right? I mean, this whole thing sounds incredibly complex. It's not like building a regular skyscraper.
No, it's not. You're absolutely right. There were definitely some things they couldn't have predicted.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, even with all the planning and picking the right plants, some species just didn't adjust well to living on the building.
So some of the trees just didn't like their new homes? What did they do about that?
Yeah, well, the team had to, think on their feet. They had to replace some trees with tougher ones. And then for others, they had to change how they watered them, how much fertilizer they used. It was a constant process of adjusting and learning.
So it was a learning curve. Even with all the planning, nature always throws something at you.
Exactly. And that's what makes it exciting. It's pushing the boundaries, learning new things. It's not just about building a pretty building,
Right.
but all this innovation, it doesn't come cheap.
What do you think one of the biggest challenges was?
Hmm. I'm going to guess it was money. I mean, all this engineering, all the upkeep, and the changes they had to make, that's got to be expensive.
You're absolutely right. Early on, people were skeptical.
Could they even make this work financially?
Ah,
And yeah, the upfront cost was high. But the team argued that in the long run, there would be savings.
right. It's an investment in a healthier city.
Yeah.
What were some of the selling points?
Well, think about the heat island effect.
Yeah, cities get so much hotter than the areas around them, all that concrete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All that concrete and asphalt, it absorbs and traps heat, and it creates these urban heat islands.
Yeah.
The vertical forest actually helps to cool things down.
Yeah.
It provides shade, and the plants release moisture into the air, what we call transpiration. It's basically like the plants are sweating,
Oh, interesting.
and that can save a lot of energy because people won't need to use their air conditioners as much.
Makes sense. So lower energy bills, that's
Yeah.
good. What else?
Public health.
Right.
With all those trees filtering the air, people living and working nearby could have better respiratory health.
Right. Fewer asthma cases, allergies, all that.
Exactly.
Ah.
It's like a built-in air purifier for the city.
I bet developers loved that idea. I bet they did. It must also be great for marketing these buildings. Live in a forest in the city.
Absolutely. It makes the area more attractive. People want to live there. Businesses want to be there. And that can boost property values, attract investments.
Yeah, a view like that would be incredible. So lots of benefits. But wouldn't you need everyone to be on board with this? Like city planners, developers, the people who will actually live there.
You're absolutely right. It's not just about one building. It's about changing the way we think about cities.
Right.
And it took a lot of convincing. But the team was passionate. They really believed in this vision of a more sustainable future. And they focused on the benefits for the whole city, not just the people in the building.
It's a whole new way of thinking about cities. But what about the people who'd live there? Would they actually want to live in a building that's basically a giant treehouse?
I know, it sounds a little strange.
Yeah.
But imagine this. You wake up to birds singing, not traffic.
Yeah.
You go out on your balcony, and there's fresh air, and you can smell the trees, not exhaust fumes.
That sounds pretty amazing.
Right. You could even grow your own herbs and vegetables right there. It's totally different from how we usually experience city life.
I live in the city, and I know I miss being around nature. But wouldn't there be downsides too? Bugs, birds flying into windows, and wouldn't all those plants be a nightmare to take care of?
Those are good points.
Yeah.
But the team thought about all that. They picked plants that don't attract pests. They designed the windows so birds wouldn't fly into them.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, there's a lot of maintenance. But they have a whole team of experts, arborists, gardeners, to take care of everything.
So it's like a whole ecosystem they're managing, not just a few plants. It sounds really impressive.
They are really committed to making this work. But it is ambitious. The big question is, will it actually work?
That is the question, isn't it?
It is. If it works,
Hmm.
could this be a model for other cities? Could we see these vertical forests popping up all over the world?
That's a mind-blowing thought. Cities becoming like forests, not just in how they look, but how they actually function. But wouldn't that require a huge change in how we think about urban design?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a complete paradigm shift. Sustainability would have to be the guiding principle in everything we do.
So, a radical transformation. But what would that world actually look like? How would people's lives be different in these green cities?
Well, I think cities would just be more pleasant places to live. Imagine walking down a street with trees everywhere, breathing clean air, hearing birds instead of traffic.
That sounds so peaceful.
It would be a sensory experience, not just a visual one.
Yeah, there's so much research now about how good nature is for us. Less stress, better mood, Even more creative thinking. It's like our brains are designed to be in nature.
Exactly. And I think it would bring people together more. Imagine neighbors working together in community gardens, kids playing in safe green spaces. It would make the city feel more like a community.
Like the green spaces are what connects everyone.
Exactly. But there would still be challenges, of course. Noise, privacy, making sure everyone has access to the green spaces.
Right.
But I think we can solve those problems if we work together and focus on solutions that benefit everyone.
So it's not just about buildings and trees, it's about a whole new way of living in cities.
Exactly. And the choices we make now will affect everything for years to come. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
The Nanjing Vertical Forest is just one example, but it's a powerful one. It shows us what's possible.
It really makes you think. But let's focus back on Nanjing for a minute. This project has gotten a lot of attention, but was there any pushback? I mean, it's so different from how we usually build things.
Of course, there were some critics.
Yeah.
Some said it was too expensive, too impractical,
Yeah?
that we should be focusing on stopping pollution, not just trying to clean it up with trees.
Like putting a Band-Aid on a bigger problem.
Exactly. And some worried that it would lead to green gentrification,
That's sad.
where only rich people can afford to live in these nice green buildings.
Oh, right. That makes sense. It could end up dividing the city even more.
Exactly. But even with the criticisms, you can't deny how bold this project is.
It is pretty amazing.
It shows what humans can do, our ingenuity, and our desire to find a way to live with nature, even in these huge cities.
It's a hopeful sign. So let's say this does become a global trend. What would that world look like? What would happen if cities really did become more like forests?
Yeah, it's a big shift, right? When I think city, I think skyscrapers, traffic, concrete, not a forest.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get from here to there?
Well, I think Nanjing shows it's not just about planting more trees. We have to change how we design cities from the ground up. Energy
Yeah.
efficiency, walkability, access to nature, all that has to be built in.
So we have to rethink the whole city? How would that even work?
Think about it. Buildings with green roofs and walls like vertical gardens,
Ah.
parks and green spaces everywhere, not just on the edges of the city,
Hmm.
and streets that are for people, not just cars. Bike lanes, wide sidewalks, maybe even walkways connecting buildings up on the rooftops. So it's like turning the city inside out. Instead of concrete islands, it's all connected to nature.
Exactly.
But wouldn't we have to rebuild everything? That sounds incredibly expensive.
Yeah, it'd be a huge change. But we're already seeing cities starting to do this, investing in green infrastructure, better transportation,
Right.
and those investments can actually save money in the long run.
How so?
Think about it. Buildings use less energy, so lower costs.
Yeah.
Healthier air means people get sick less, so healthcare costs go down. And people want to live in these green areas, so property values go up.
So there are economic benefits too, not just environmental.
Right, but it's also about how people live, how they feel.
Yeah, how would life be different in these green cities?
Well, you could walk or bike to work surrounded by trees, have lunch in a rooftop garden. It'd be so much calmer, and that's good for your mental and physical health.
It makes sense. We know being in nature is good for you. Less stress, better mood, even more creativity. Our brains need that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it would make cities feel more like communities too. People gardening together, kids playing in safe green spaces. It brings people together.
It's like the green spaces become the heart of the community.
Yeah. But there would still be challenges. Noise, privacy, making sure everyone has access to those spaces.
Right, right.
But I think we can figure those things out if we work together and focus on solutions that work for everyone.
So it's not just about the design, it's about the culture, the way we live.
It is.
Yeah.
And the choices we make now will have a big impact down the road. But we're still early in this whole thing. Nanjing is just one example.
It is a pretty inspiring example, though.
It is. It shows us a different way of doing things.
It does. So if we can imagine these green cities, what would that world be like?
I think it would be a world where we feel more connected to nature, to each other, to ourselves. Cities wouldn't just be places to live, they'd be places to thrive. And wouldn't that be worth it?
I think so. Even if we don't get everything perfect, even a few steps in that direction would make a huge difference.
I agree. And who knows, maybe Nanjing is the start of something big, a little seed that grows into a better future for all of us.
Well said. And to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. Imagine your city transformed. What would that look like? How would it feel? And what can you do to make it happen? Because the future of our cities is in our hands. It's something we create together.